This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Thank you everybody for being here today. I want to start just, I suppose, clarify something I mentioned this morning. I thought it was pretty clear, but I just want to maybe take another swing at it and see if I can eliminate any confusion. D'Eriq King suffered a pretty significant shoulder injury in the Michigan State game, and the immediate prognosis was that it would require a season-ending surgery. There was a small chance that if we let it rehab, that over time maybe we could find a solution. During that time, D'Eriq and his family sought out
Times Square, TJ Holmes and
multiple second opinions from doctors here, doctors back home. You know, but it always sort of came back to the same thing, that eventually he would need the surgery. So he finally made the decision this weekend to have the surgery. We know how hard that is for D'Eriq, how hard he wanted to be back out there with his teammates. I think that's exemplified by the way that he played at Michigan State, which is, you know, the memory that I'll always have, just how courageous he was, and what he's meant to our program in terms of his leadership. Of course, his play and his presence will still be felt, you know, as a leader on this team in this locker room. He's meant a lot to what we're trying to build here. And I just, like I said, I mean, to me, there's no one that could have wanted to be on a field this season more than D'Eriq King. And I know how much it hurts him to not. So with that, just want to make sure we're clear on that. Just open up for questions.
All right, thanks, Coach. We'll start with Matt Shodell. Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, how you doing?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Doing fine. A couple of questions. Got the new depth chart. I saw there weren't really any major changes other than a quarterback and at center. So Corey Gaynor, if you can update his status, and also with D'Eriq, thanks for clarifying that. But it's also unclear. I assume he can still get an extra year of eligibility? Is that the case? And if so, I assume you'd want him back. I don't know. Can you talk about that also?
That would be up to D'Eriq, of course. If D'Eriq could play for us as long as he wants to. So yeah, but that's going to be up to D'Eriq and what his thoughts are in terms of his career going forward. Corey Gaynor felt like he was not. Corey Gaynor, since the Alabama game, was dealing with a knee situation that was bothering him, and it was not allowing him to be the player that he could be. His play was suffering because of it, and I can't remember the exact timeline. You know, so on scans of the knee, you know, there was a problem identified, you know, and it was one of those where the surgery could be a small fix or it could be a large fix. And again, it became a situation where the way that Corey was playing right now, he couldn't play another play with the way that his knee was. So they decided to have the surgery and hope that it would be the small fix. It turned out to be a big fix. And that fix on Corey's knee ended his season as well. So a big loss in terms of, you know, our top leader in the offensive line room. I think Ja'Kai Clark has done a phenomenal job of filling in at center in the interim. But yeah, that's a situation with Corey.
Next, we'll go to David Lake. David, go ahead.
Yeah, just I guess building off the injury stuff, I was wondering if you had any other updates on, like, against Virginia, right? Jared Harrison Hunt was out, Jordan Miller. I think Tyreek left in the middle of the game. I don't think he came back. There was also Al Blades and Amari Carter. If you could update us on them.
Yeah, we would expect Harrison Hunt, Miller, Stevenson, Carter, Keontre Smith to all be back this weekend from North Carolina. They're all back practicing right now. Al Blades, we don't expect back. Same thing. Al was, you know, he was able to compete the first couple weeks. Al, it turns out, had a sports hernia that had to be fixed, and it just became too much for him to play through. So again, just a very, you know, the time that I've been doing this, a very peculiar run of injuries that kind of all jumped on us at the same time. And so, you know, guys will have to step up, which is normal for football.
Next, we'll go to Chris Stock. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah. Coach, I apologize. Earlier this season, you said run defense, you felt like it was coming back around, yards, noting yards per carry attempt. It hasn't been there the last couple games. I'm just kind of curious where it is now, how you feel about it, maybe where some of the breakdowns have been. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a big disappointment in the Virginia game. And when we look at the totality of our defensive performance, it's been the explosive play that's been the issue, and that's really what we focused the majority of our attention on. We've got, and this is similar for most defenses. Most defenses, how good a defense you are is how you limit explosive plays. But we showed our guys, as it was kind of one of the themes of last week. We've got, I think, 316 plays of defense where people are averaging 2.6 total run, pass, whatever against us, and it's the 48 plays, which is going to be less than 9 a game, or between 9 and 10 a game, that are our problem. I think right now we've got about one out of every 5 running plays is ending up in a tackle for loss. And this is not a risk reward thing, like whether we're blitzing or not blitzing. There's no trend in terms of any type of call. It's a level of consistency that has been the battle cry defensively. Is just consistent performance. You go out there, and again, use the Virginia game as an example. You make them punt 4 times in a row, 5 out of the first 6 times that they have it, and you have a very poor drive before halftime. Now, the other side of that is that you may again use that Virginia game as an example. That drive, which would have been the 7th drive of the game on defense, I believe would have been about the 42nd snap of defense that we played that day. And that's where we talk about both sides need to play better complementary ball, offense to defense. Defense has to make stops when our offense scores, which we did not do well versus Virginia. But the offense has to possess the ball, and they've got to stay on the field. If you're going to be a high tempo offense, which we pride ourselves on being, and we saw how dangerous that can be, especially a year ago, you got to make first downs. And because again, defensively, we're playing too many snaps, especially early in the game. And those are things that help, that those factor in. So when you have a mental error or loss of a leverage or things like that, those are things that happen. But I mean, that's why offenses want to stay on the field and they want to, get the snap count up. So, nothing operates in a vacuum in the sport of football. And that's been a big focus of us here in the bye week.
Next, we're going to Tim Reynolds from the AP. Tim, go ahead.
Thank you. Manny, I have 2 questions. The first one, did De'Eric try to play a different position? Was that under consideration at all?
You mean now, like since the injury?
Yes.
No, because the injury thing didn't have anything to do with throwing a football. It was a structural shoulder issue. He couldn't have played another position.
My other question, totally unrelated to injury stuff. Your conference season is just getting started. North Carolina's almost over after Saturday. Is there anything to that, Manny? Is there anything? Would you rather? Does it matter that it's not very uniform between some teams already playing 5 conference games and some teams are only playing 1 to this point? Does that? I know you can't control it. Does it matter at all?
I would say it's peculiar. I don't ever remember it being so. The gap between being so large of how many games someone's played in the league and so many games haven't. But I think what happens in most situations, look, it's October, and what you probably have is you have 2 teams that are looking to find their way and looking to finish the second half of the season, regardless of conference schedule, better than the first half. So yeah, the fact that we're 0-1 in the ACC standings, and that's where we're at, which means we have a lot of ball still to play in the league. It gives us something obviously that we've got to play for, but I don't think it is going to change the mentality of either team out there on Saturday.
Next, we're going to David Lang. David, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I'm just curious about sort of the emotional and the human side of the injury to De'Eric. What was that like for you emotionally when you guys came to that decision? And then what were De'Eric's as he had to deal with this tough situation?
I mean, De'Eric he's one of the mentally toughest people I've ever been around. And I think, as you mentioned, the decision, I mean, that, it's almost been 4 weeks now of going through this. So I think there's been, I don't want to say an inevitability. There were a couple, maybe optimistic days where maybe there was a chance, that turned out, to not be the case. So I think it's been a series of time to process it. But yeah, emotionally, when you see a guy like that who lays it on the line and is such a great teammate and such a hard worker, you want guys like that to have success, right? I mean, that's ultimately, that's what the Hollywood movies are built on, and what he went through in the bowl game, the way that the guy rehabbed, the way the guy worked in the offseason inspired, everybody. Derek deserves better. He really does. But the good part of the story is that his story is not being written. It's not done being written, and even if that carries beyond football as a player, and whether it's in the coaching career, because he's got a brilliant mind for football. I know that Derek King's DNA is going to make him very, very successful going forward. And his reward, it seems like, where it got taken away from him on the field this year, his reward is coming. He's going to be a success. I promise you that.
What about the team? What about his teammates finding out? You've talked about how he's a once every 10-year kind of guy, such an incredible leader. When a leader like that goes down, what is that like inside your locker room?
Yeah, well, I think that's something that everybody had to process, coming out of Michigan State, and that made that week very difficult, obviously, for us. And then you find out on Monday that you're going to be without Jake for a period of time. I mean, that was a lot to go through. And then some of these other injury things that I've been mentioning, they were all sort of popping around at the same time. I've been doing this for a while now, and it was one of the more extraordinary things I've ever seen in terms of the volume and the timing of how they all hit us at the same time. Whatever it is, we went through it. I mean, you can't understate what Derek is as a leader. You know what I mean? And again, I thought everybody's really excited to watch Tyler Van Dyke play, and the way that he persevered through the first half of Virginia, and the way he played, coming down the stretch, got everybody fired up, and everybody in this program respects Tyler because of the worker he is and the way he goes about his business every day. And everybody's ready to fight for Tyler. But yeah, I mean, you can't not feel for Derek. I mean, that's just human nature.
Okay, we got time for a few more. We'll go to Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald. Susan, go ahead.
Hi, Manny. I have two questions also. The first one is, and I think you kind of answered this. I wasn't sure when Derek's surgery would be, and he helped so much when he was out there with the younger quarterbacks. Even at the games, he seemed to help a lot. Could he still have any type of role this season? And my follow-up is, what's the status of Mike Rumph as far as his status with the team? Obviously you saw that news, so.
Yeah, right now I can't say a whole lot about Mike Rumph other than, like I said, we're trying to gather all the information we can in his case. In terms of Derek, I completely expect Derek to be on the sideline, helping the guys out. He has a massive presence amongst our quarterbacks. He can see so much during the course of the game, and sometimes that player-to-player communication, can even unlock some doors that coach-to-player communication doesn't. So I would expect Derek to be there Saturday in Chapel Hill.
And when will his surgery be?
This week.
Oh, okay. And he'll still be there. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Andrea Adelson from ESPN. Andrea.
Hey, Manny, I have two totally unrelated questions. The first one you mentioned earlier, it would be up to Derek to decide if he wanted to come back. Is that something that he's told you he's thinking about at this point?
That's why we haven't had any discussion about that, because
Okay.
we have to think about, we just sort of processed this first part of it. So, that was, I can't speak for him in that. So.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was an open-ended thing or not.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other unrelated question, we've talked about college football maybe needing to see more than just the same usual suspects at the top. And in the ACC, it's playing out this year where it feels more wide open as well. From your coaching perspective, have you sensed that it feels more wide open this year in the conference or in college football in general?
I would say college football in general. Absolutely appears to be wide open. I mean, if you look at what the top 10 in the preseason polls was compared to where it is now, and you've got someone like Iowa, ranked second, and what a phenomenal atmosphere they had up there this weekend, and just the ups and downs and the comings of going to different teams. But I think there's still really, really good teams that are not ranked, that were ranked high early on. I mean, even you look at Clemson and where they're at right now, that's still a phenomenal team, with great coaches and great players. So, as you know, we like, college ball is a sport where we take a picture of it after every weekend and make assessments. But, again, it is still a long season. Teams are finding their way, looking to improve, and we'll see how it all looks in November.
And we'll wrap up with Kobe Price from the Sun Sentinel. Kobe, go ahead.
Thanks, Carter. Hey, Manny, kind of wanted to touch on Tyler. How have you seen him respond to, the whole news with Derek? And guys, what are you looking to see from him from a preparation standpoint leading into Saturday?
Well, I think Tyler's, the good news, he's already been through 2 games, has already sort of had to fight through some adversity in the Virginia game. He's got a different experience. He's going on the road for the first time. And again, key to quarterback play is everybody's got to play well around the quarterback, and whether that's, helping him out with the run game, which obviously we were a lot better running the football in the second half last week than we were in the first half, and making contested catches, those type of things. Tyler
thumbs up if I can hear this.
Tyler just has to be, do his job, and I think that's what everybody respects about Tyler. Tyler is a no nonsense guy, has a businessman type approach, and everybody, if you just watch the guy work in off-season workouts, he's a guy that everybody can depend on because they know what he says he's going to do, he's going to do.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.